Oh, it's Mr. McFeely.
I have seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimsley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
Wow, that's awesome. That is so awesome. Let's do some broadcasting.
And we will with our guy Mike McFeely joining us in studio each and every Tuesday at 9:35. Mike's column, you can check it out right now at Inforum.com after the news that broke late Saturday, early Sunday morning on the arrest of now former Bison linebacker Jaden Picket. The police report is out. You can read that as well. You and I were chatting yesterday. This is a different level of story that we have not covered.
It is. People have noticed it. Let's put it that way.
Uh-huh.
People in the community have noticed that. I had a comment made to me yesterday. Well, looks like Rocky Hager's back. And that, that's going way back. And I like Rocky, but back in those days, in the 80s, North Dakota State had a reputation for having some kids get in trouble, right? Early in the Division I days, and you and Kolpak chronicled this yesterday, NDSU had some problems with some kids getting in trouble.
Yep.
And there was a string of them for a long time, and they were big ones. It was
not minuscule, no.
The Best Buy theft ring, and one of the kids was accused of being a
dealer,
dealer level marijuana purchaser or distributor.
Yeah.
There was the petition fraud. All of them making headlines. It had been a while since NDSU had been in that territory, at least of notable guys being dismissed or really, high-level type accusations of crimes where you go, oof, jeepers, creepers, that's not good. And they kind of went from 0 to 100 here in a day, in hours actually after the game. And the gun thing is a whole different level of getting in trouble, and that's something that I don't think we've seen it. There was a kid at Moorhead State a couple of years ago, a basketball player who ended up having a handgun in his gym bag or his whatever, his equipment bag, and they dismissed him immediately, of course, because it's a gun.
It's a gun,
But at North Dakota State, this is the first gun-related incident that we know of, and it was bad. I mean, when you have according to the police report, Pickett had a 9mm gun in the waistband of his pants and took it out during an argument and apparently shot into the house. If he was just firing randomly or the report didn't specify that, but apparently it almost hit another Bison athlete, a track athlete. And then if that happens, which it did not, then that's an entirely different level there. But this was not good. And the head coach, Tim Powlsek, and the athletic director, Matt Larson, they quickly announced yesterday that Pickett was off the team, and that was the right call. It wasn't a difficult call. That's why I wrote today. I mean, it's not like there was I hope there wasn't a debate like that type of thing. They had to make the call, and they did quickly. And so it's just not a good situation. No. What I will say is this, and I don't know Jaden Pickett at all. I don't think I would have ever talked to him.
I interviewed him once.
I just don't know. As I understand it, sort of a rough background. And kids like that, you always kind of look at an opportunity to go to college as a way to get a path out of what might have been a difficult background. And there are many, many success stories. And there are some going on right now at North Dakota State and Moorhead State and UND and South Dakota State, whatever, name the school. There's always kids that come from more difficult backgrounds, and this allows them an opportunity that many in their situation are not getting, and it's because of their athletic ability. I'm not denying that, but it is an opportunity to break the cycle or to move their family forward by getting a college education. And it would appear that opportunity is gone now for this kid. And so I understand it's a very, very serious accusation, and it could lead up to 5 years in prison for the guy. He's 19 years old. I don't know him, know nothing about him, but a part of me is also sort of sad about this because the kid had a chance.
Right.
And now that chance is likely gone,
Effectively gone,
because of his decision making. Excuse me.
It's okay. But I mean, the chance we talked about it yesterday was the opportunity for him to potentially get out of a situation which, and I know this,
and
was not good,
and he's responsible for it. And so I'm not making up an excuse or anything else. That's not my point at all. But you know, I've already seen some of the emails that I've received about this, and they're your usual, what you would expect in this situation, because the kid he's from Milwaukee and he's black, and so there are people who are going to latch onto that immediately and send emails where you just go, God, Lord, really? But part of me says it's really tragic. Not in a way of somebody lost their life or anybody was injured, but tragic in a way of there was a chance for the kid to get out of his life situation and move his family forward, and he made a bad decision or a number of them, and now that opportunity's gone.
And how you and I visited about this yesterday, how close it was to being something completely else. That's the scary part. That's the scary part to me, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday. It's just we were hair length away from this being something else talking about. And it's not.
And I am a guy from, Alexandria, Minnesota. Grew up in the Twin Cities originally, but graduated high school from Alexandria. I've lived in Fargo, Moorhead pretty much since then, other smaller towns. I do not understand the gun thing.
Mm-mm.
And I'm not talking, I own weapons myself. I own shotguns, I own rifles, because I used to hunt. I don't anymore. No reason. I just kind of lost interest. So I'm not like one of these people. It's like, oh my God, nobody should have a gun. I understand firearms to a certain extent. I don't understand the gun thing.
No.
And why in Fargo you think you would need a gun going to a house party. That's the part that I can't wrap my mind around. And I'm not from the world that Jaden Picket grew up in. I am who I am, but I don't. You're going to a house party in Fargo, North Dakota, with apparently some of your teammates and other athletes. I don't get the gun thing. That's the part I don't. Why you would make that decision in the first place, unless there's way more to the story that we don't know about, and that maybe there is. It doesn't seem like it
at the moment. No,
but and it's not. As I wrote in my column today as well, it's not uncommon in football or in basketball. John Morant.
You're right.
A guy who's worth like $50 million.
Correct.
Got suspended from the NBA because he had
half the year.
He had a gun in a strip club or whatever it was. It's like, what?
Yep.
What? And just there's kids on college campuses that have handguns on campus. They get caught. It's just like, what?
Yep.
I don't get it. It's not something that I understand.
There's no easy transition here to actual football. Because the Bison head coach had about 5-6 hours to maybe enjoy it before what went down on Saturday night and Sunday
welcome
morning.
to being a head
You're
coach.
Right, exactly. We talked about that as well.
Welcome to being a head coach.
Yesterday, but how much do you take out of what you saw of the game Saturday going forward? Was there something that was like, okay, they beat an inferior opponent?
They did, but a couple things I've noticed through the first two games under Tim Polasek, as opposed to some of the previous seasons under Matt Entz, is it looks to me like the offense is really in rhythm. And again, you can look at the opponent and go, well, but there's just no false starts.
Nope.
There's no miscues. The Bison had 0 penalties in the first half against Tennessee State. They had 4 of their 5 penalties came in the fourth quarter when it was third stringers in there.
Yep.
And a couple of those were personal fouls on deep reserves for NDSU, and that is what it is. But so far, the Bison offense and the team in general, I guess, isn't being penalized a lot.
No.
And there's no like clunkiness, or I can remember so many times after games the last couple of years where you'd say, God, they just look so sloppy and undisciplined.
Yep.
And come on. I mean,
Right.
come on.
Yep.
What are you doing? There's been none of
No.
that.
Nope.
Where you just, it seems like a pretty smooth operation at this point, and the offense particularly is efficient, to use the cliche of the year, and just not a lot of going backwards by the offense.
Bryce Lance looked the part, something we had seen through spring ball and through fall camp. We were told it. I know you wrote about this after the game on Saturday, but he looked like a guy that can be a difference maker. And I had an email sent to me yesterday asking, and I'm paraphrasing here, of like, well, what was the previous staff doing when they're playing Jake Lippy over this guy? And
that's something else that stood out. And we've talked about this, but
you're going to throw shade at Jake Lippy, but I think it's a fair point.
No,
right?
But it's what I've noticed more is that Tim Polasek a couple of times publicly.
Yes.
This isn't like behind the scenes or just BSing with us. He has said into a microphone, I don't know why Bryce Lance didn't play more the previous 2 years.
Can't believe he only had one career catch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Cam Miller on Saturday night also said he could have played earlier in his career, but he waited his turn. And neither of them, through the previous coaching staff, you just don't do that. And there's no reason to. I mean, Bison were very successful under Matt Entz and Tyler Roll, so there's no reason to do that. But they clearly have questions about why
it begs the question.
He wasn't on the field more.
Well,
and the player, obviously, that was in his place, it appered, would be Jake Lippy, because you're not going to take Zach Mathis out of the lineup.
You're not taking Eli Green off the field.
Eli Green off the field.
No. But I look back at the end of 22, how often we were talking like they can't move the ball from A to B, let alone A to F. I mean, they were 9 guys in the box. They could not throw the ball down the field.
But I don't know that
I don't know that
Bryce
either.
is like a burner.
Right.
I think they're still missing that guy.
Yep.
Like Eli Green gave them some downfield
I agree.
options.
Yep.
And there appears to be a couple of young guys that could provide that. Jackson Williams being one of them, the true freshman from Nebraska.
Showed it on the kick return there, no doubt.
Got some wheels.
Yep.
And so is he a guy that you can just send on a deep post or on a fly pattern, just go run as fast as you can? Go be the kid from The Incredibles and just go run as fast as you can and run past everybody.
Does he have good hands in The Incredibles? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's good.
Dash.
Yeah.
No.
The kid's good.
We got to go to break
So
here.
his nickname now is Jackson Dash Williams, by the way. So you're welcome, Jackson.
The propensity, though, and Kopech brought this up, of the younger guys that came in and played, I didn't see a considerable talent drop off. And I know who they're playing against.
I'll agree. I heard Jeff say that yesterday, and I'm not going to. I mean, there's clearly a talent drop off because some kids are starting and some are not. So there's reasons why we're not at practice every day. I'm not a talent evaluator. The coaches make those decisions, and I'm not going to argue that. But there was a stretch there where NDSU would get up big on somebody, like a Central Arkansas, let's say, last year.
Yep.
And then the backups would come in the fourth quarter, and the other team would just go through them like a hot knife through butter. I mean, just like, wow, okay, somebody tackle somebody out there. It was Tennessee State.
Yep.
So let's make that. Central Arkansas is pretty darn good, by the way. It was Tennessee State. But you kind of went, geez. I mean, these kids they're flying around out there, and they're getting to the ball and they're hitting people.
Yeah.
They're not missing tackles. They're not, blowing coverages. And so that part to me was like kind of go, okay, well, you could see the next wave coming, which we used to be able to see back in the glory days,
true.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd go, oh man, look at that kid. There was some of that on Saturday night where I was actually watching the fourth quarter as opposed to writing my column, which I often do in those blowouts. You're right to get it done with. There's no reason to watch a 50-0 game. But I was watching the fourth quarter, much of it, because I'm going, geez, look at Donovan Woolen.
I thought, the
kid
3 linebackers. Woolen was out there. Staling was making plays, and Austin Altapeter from Moorhead was making plays.
And you kind of, and some of the defensive linemen, you kind of going, geez.
Keenan Wilson was making plays.
Look at that kid.
Yep.
And so that would seem to be portend well for the future, which it felt like for a couple of years there, you just kind of went, man, when they lose Dawson Weber and Mike Tutsi, what's next? And
think we're still in that spot at the safety position at the current
There's
time.
a reason why I said what I said.
Let's break. We come back. We'll chat a couple other FCS topics as we wrap up hour one. Back with Mike McFeely on this Tuesday morning, right after this. Well, there's the first of our annual tweets on Monday night from Mike on
Look at that
bowling
start.
week. Yeah.
Look at the
182
start.
is dynamic, man.
I left some pins on the table in the last frame or I would have got 200 in my first
That's your debut.
game of the year.
Debut for 2024.
I had all these dreams. Sunset Lanes, once the Winter League is over, for May, June, July, August, and August, those 4 months, you can buy a summer membership for the low, low price of $30 for the entire 4 months, right?
Yep.
And so last winter, I'm going, okay, I'm going to buy the $30, and then you can bowl as much as you want on $30. $30.
That's pretty good.
Right? So last, I'm going to do this. Every time I drive by Sunset, we live way up in North Moorhead, so I go by Sunset quite a bit. I'm going to buy a membership. By the time we got to July, my wife was like, "You're not going to buy a membership. Just stop talking. You blew your chance to practice.
The ship has sailed there.
That ship has sailed. You go to the golf course, you go fishing, you walk the dogs. You're not buying a membership at Sunset, so just don't. You can, because it's $30, but you're not going to, so stop talking about it." Had a guy show up last night at bowling, and he and I had talked about this. He was like another partner in crime. He shows up last night and goes, "You know what we should do? we should buy a membership next summer." Did not do it. But 182, I was going, okay.
Heck of a start,
I kind of found a groove.
Right.
Second game, I had a little drop off, but I was still kind of in the groove. Then by the third game, I was just back to normal. It's like, okay, I am what I am.
So you're like a Twins pitcher. First time through the order, pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Second time, not bad.
I like that.
Third time, not so good.
I like that analogy.
Third
Yes.
time, not so good.
I could probably pitch for the Twins right now. I'd probably be better at that than I would be at bowling, as a matter of fact.
Big thing, no thing, something. All 4 Dakota schools for the first time are ranked in the top 10 of the FCS poll. Is that a thing to you?
Somebody pointed it out to me yesterday, and I said, whatever. Part of it is because
of where we're at
in the FCS. But part of it is that USD and UND have gotten much better in the last few years.
Yep.
And so it just speaks to what I tweeted out the other night. Of the top 15 ranked teams in FCS right now, like 13 of them are from the Valley or the Big Sky Conference. And I would argue that you could probably substitute in a couple other Valley teams for the teams that are ranked.
I would agree with that.
And they would probably be just as good or better.
It's a heck of a win for UND on Saturday night, Michael. That was a game that you had talked about when we joined us last week that can go one way or the other for their season. Now it went this way, and I would be stunned if they're not 4-1 when they come to Fargo.
4-1 coming to Fargo. You'd think that both teams are going to be 4-1. It'll be a big deal, obviously for UND and for NDSU. But I think, as always, more so for UND to come in here at 4-1 with a chance to knock off the Bison. UND is fine. I think over the summer, I think we all thought, seeing what they lost in the portal, and that they had a very inexperienced quarterback. Whoever they chose was going to be a rough go of it. Their offensive line has looked really good. I mean, they were running the ball like crazy against both Iowa State, actually, in the second half. And then especially Montana had no answers. It was the oddest.
What was he doing?
I don't know.
What was he doing in that game?
It was just there's an odd quote from him too about how they have depth issues at quarterback, and so we never thought they were going to run the quarterback. Well, but once they do,
maybe
make an adjustment.
That?
I mean, maybe coach. I don't know. And then and then at the end of the game, as I tweeted out, much to the chagrin of UND fans, it's like great win for UND. More power to them. But you have 1st and 10 at the 30, and you have 3 timeouts in your pocket, and you're run the quarterback draw. I mean,
which he did. He went for like 30 yards on the previous
then the next play, do it again. And they drop back to pass 3 times with 3 timeouts. I understand if you don't have any timeouts.
No.
But you have 3 times. You have the whole playbook is open on 1st and 2nd down, because you have free timeouts.
It was bizarre.
And they went backwards, and the poor kid had to try a 54-yard field goal, which
he actually had the distance,
but he wasn't
accurate.
You're not going to make a 54-yard field goal in FCS football.
Real quick before we go,
although our guy made a 51-yarder.
Osick, and it would have been good from 54.
Yep.
He had a couple more yards to spare. South Dakota State through 2 games. How do you evaluate the Jackrabbits so far?
Still the most talented team in FCS from what I've seen. I've watched quite a bit of their games now. Still the most talent, have probably the highest ceiling, but they're just not the same.
No.
I mean, they're just not. But that doesn't mean they're not going to win the national championship. As we saw in like the second half of 2022 and all of last year, the Jacks there was such a separation between them and the second team.
Yep.
And it played itself out in Frisco both times. And against NDSU, the last, 4 times they've played, the Jacks were just a better team. I don't think that, as you said last week, I don't think the gap is quite as wide. I think the Jacks I don't know that they're going to go undefeated through FCS. It just seems like there's some vulnerabilities there, that they're not quite as dominant. If things go the wrong way, they could lose a game. But they're still the favorite to win it all because they have the veteran quarterback and some of their offensive players. Whoever that tight end is.
Yeah, he's a dude, too.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, they got another one.
They used to get guys like that in Fargo. The kid's like 6'7", 250, and he's outrunning cornerbacks. It's like jeepers creepers.
And Griffin Wilde is a stud,
my God.
too.
That kid from South Dakota State was like, he caught that touchdown pass, or he got down to about the 5.
5, yeah.
I just went, oh, my goodness.
Yepper.
He's gigantic, and he's outrunning cornerbacks.
Are we a believer, speaking of SDSU, of Mr. X team? Is Idaho a contender?
Yeah, I think they're right there. You talk about the top 5 teams in FCS or top 6 teams. They're
Idaho's
one of
in
them.
That. Yep.
For sure. They had an injury at quarterback and still found a way to beat what apparently is
a quarterback now.
A really horrible Wyoming team. I think Paulsek got lucky.
I think so, too.
They didn't get that job at Wyoming that he seemed to want. This is a better job for him to win games in advance, possibly.
I will circle this one. I know you do because you love your FCS football. October 12th, 9:15, Idaho at Montana State on ESPN2 that night.
I like Montana State, too.
That game's in Bozeman
The trouble with Montana State, although I don't think that they can throw the ball as well as they need to, and Tommy Malott just doesn't seem to have advanced a ton in that area.
Yep.
But, they can run the football.
Yes.
Wow, they can run the football.
Yes.
NDSU used to be able to do that, too.
Yep. Can't do that right now.
UND went on they went on like a 9-minute, 50-yard drive.
Right, for the field goal
against Montana.
One last game before we go. Watch South Dakota versus Wisconsin. The Coyotes will be a tough out. USD hung in there with Wisconsin. So, by the way. Wisconsin has Alabama this week.
Yes. But their quarterback at Wisconsin, I watched their first game and kind of was like, I don't know. They're whatever. They're Wisconsin.
Oh, I'll tell the Coyotes, watch out. They have Drake after this week. Jeez. And Drake just beat Eastern Washington.
Remember when Eastern Washington was elite? Like 2018, the Bison beat him because the Bison had an all-time team in 2018.
Team. But Eastern Washington was pretty darn good.
Was good.
Mm-hmm.
They were really good.
And not so much
Eric
anymore.
Berry as the quarterback. And
they had Cup's younger brother was a linebacker.
Kettner Cup.
Kettner Cup.
Yep.
They were all right then. Yep. Not so much anymore.
Oh. No, they're lost to a Pioneer.
I know.
And then Northern Iowa.
I know.
You had Northern Iowa you had Northern Iowa like 5th or 6th. They almost lost to St. Thomas.
I know. And they struggled with
St. Thomas lost to Sioux Falls.
Yes, I know.
And so, okay, I'm done after this. The coaches poll in FCS.
Oh, I know.
They had Northern Iowa ranked. They ranked them. They beat Drake. No, who they beat? Drake. No. St. Thomas. No, they beat Valpo
and St. Thomas.
Yes. And people move them up into the top 25 of the rankings. I mean, it's oftentimes like a balancing job as like, boy, I mean, who's not watching? Because we know that people on the stats poll don't watch the games, right? You do.
I watch.
I don't vote, but I watch quite a few FCS games. We know others don't.
Yes.
The coaches poll
clearly don't.
I mean, they just look at the records. Northern Iowa 2-0. Okay. I'm done now.
Good to see you, man.
Great job, coaches. Way to take your sports seriously.
We'll talk to you later. Mike McFeely joining us. We'll come back, start hour 2. Steve Lockway on deck. Dragons get set for Duluth. We're back after this.